Detective Comics 964, James Tynion the fourth, and Christopher Cebula on writing, and Carmen Nunez Carnero on art. Um, Now, man, I thought this was an emotional gut punch of an issue in a number of ways.
Just before we get to the actual issue, I was a little surprised because I thought this whole, the underground stuff was done already. Like, I thought we were like, okay, I thought we were
we read one more issue. We talked about this last week.
I know, but for some reason in my mind, I was like, this is done.
It just showed our place last week. We just found out about it.
I know. I don't know why my mind was so insistent that we're done. So when I opened it and I was like, oh, it's this stuff, I was kind of surprised.
So we had two main plots going on here. We had two, and both of them were gut punches. And we'll start with Clayface, because I think the other one leads into the next story a bit more. But Clayface is with he's in his human form, and he's with Mudface at Arkham, and he's there to visit her, and they're reminiscing over old times. They're joking about how they were working with this director on a movie, and he was such a drunk fool. They basically had to fix the script and take all the responsibility on themselves. And he tells the story.
It was terrible still.
It's still terrible, yeah. But
they had a fun time, and that was the point, is they bonded over fixing a bad thing.
We have all been there. But he.
Director's the worst.
Excuse me.
Huh?
So he's basically there to tell her, look, we might have a cure. I'm working with this doctor. She might be able to figure this out, and I can leave Clayface behind. Everything will be fine. But then she's like, look, even if you aren't Clayface anymore, I still have the memory of you holding me under chemicals and turning me into this. Like, no matter what you look like, no matter who you are tomorrow, you're still a monster inside. And I'm like, oh man, that cut deep. And then it cuts to Clayface on his own.
And you're like, no wonder Clayface is a villain.
Yeah, he's sitting there, he's moping, and then he's got this little hologram phone on his wrist, and Cass appears, kind of Star Wars style, and is like, and she's like, oh, how did it go? Cheer up, and it's like, man.
She says, be brave, believe in you, make life better.
Their relationship has become such a good heart to this book.
It's my favorite thing.
It's kind of like Wolverine and Kitty Pryde in the X-Men, where you had this really gruff guy and then this super bright-eyed, hopeful, and that they bleed into each other, and they help each other out.
No, this was already touching. We're just a few pages into the issue, and it was already hitting me with these gut punches, and I was so into it. And Clayface gets angry. He goes in. He demands his bracelet back that puts him back into human form. He can't take it anymore, and he gets angry. He gets monstrous. He starts wrecking the place. He starts getting upset. Yep. And eventually, Cass shows up, and I love that her appearance. He just feels like the knife's going at the back, and then he turns around and it's Cass that's there, and she's fighting him, and she basically gets the bracelet on him by force. Yep. And he's a wreck. He's upset, and
because he wasn't wearing it because the doctor was like, we need to do this in steps, and you need to start being Clayface some more. You don't need that bracelet.
Yeah, it's the idea of see how long we can go, test the limits.
Yeah, and he gets proper he gets all spiky and everything, and he's like proper raw and the whole thing. Yeah. So
he's villain Clayface. He's not the fun Basil Clayface.
I just someone take that out of context. Just Peter going proper raw.
Proper raw.
That could be used for a number of occasions. I think you'll find.
And and it's Dr. October, right?
Whatever her name is, I can't remember.
Great names. We have Dr. Veritas and Supergirl, and then Dr. October and Detective. But even at the end, she's like, okay, well, we got to learn our limits here. Like, this was on me. This was on me. But the stuff with Cass and Clayface and her, I thought was really fun. And it's what Tynion is doing so well. By juggling these characters.
It's when Cass shows up in the middle of it, and it's you really suddenly like the emotion suddenly there, because obviously Clayface is going after the doctor. It's like okay, I get it. And then Cass is there. It's like, oh, suddenly this means something.
Yeah, because he's at his worst, and she's witnessing it, and they mean something to each other, so it means something to us. It's like, oh no, this has consequences. But she's still trying to root for him. She's still telling him to calm down. She's still doing it for him.
It's when she calls him Basil, not Clayface.
Yeah,
that's the moment that got me.
It's family. You see the worst in each other, but you're still there at the end of the day, and someone can always rein you back in.
Exactly.
There's people that care about you.
Super touching stuff, and then likewise the Steph stuff. It's not as strong initially, but it gets to great places later on. So she's down in this underground city with Anarchy, and he's like, oh, this and that, and blah, 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 blah. Harper's down there. Harper's already down there helping out.
That one got me. Well, Leslie Tompkins, too.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting those.
No, and so they come in, and Harper's like, oh, that thing I've been talking about for the electrical system, we've done it here, and it works. Like, I can't wait to do more of this, and it's really a utopia. And you kind of start to think, like, oh, Anarchy's onto something. Like, maybe it's not about chaos. It's about order, and people are responsible for themselves.
It
but, of course, it
gives them some legitimacy, doesn't it? Because you've got Leslie Tompkins and Harper, and it gives it... Even though I'm still expecting them to turn it to be an evil scumbag, and sure enough, it doesn't take very long to find out.
There's people that we trust that are there as well, that are on board with this.
Well, that's what got me, and he's talking like how they bring in professors, and they loop through, and school's not mandatory, but people show up, and it's a positive environment for everybody. And it's kind of, it sold me on it, and I was like, oh yeah, he's not this guy, like, it's just a front. And then you start seeing him talking to Steph the way that he is, and it's just like, oh, that's not going to fly with her.
Takes her inside and kind of, and they end up kissing, and you feel a little bit sick. You're like, oh no, Steph, what are you doing? And sure enough, she pushes him away, and it's like, okay, right, she's not completely gone crazy. This is good. And it's actually just after this where suddenly Batman appears. He's like, he's
lying.
lying.
We saw at the end of last
we'd seen him
issue.
watching.
Oh yeah. We knew he was in pursuit. We knew he was watching, but in this issue, we hadn't seen him yet. So it was suddenly he shows up, and he's like, here, this is him. He worked with the first victim from the victim syndicate. And I'm, oh, okay, we're tying into other arcs in the story. This is cool. This is and it's like, oh, we're all part of the victim syndicate. Everyone who's in this city is part of that syndicate, essentially, is what his point is, including you, Steph. But obviously, Steph's like, wait, this asshole poisoned me. What, you worked with him?
Yeah.
How did I ever trust you? And Anarchy gets violent. He starts to fighting, and I love the moment where Steph's like, hey, Batman, no, this is my fight. Don't you dare.
Yeah.
And he does eventually intervene because she gets kind of tied up, and he just kind of okay, it's time to do it.
But she's still the one that takes out Anarchy because she saw his strengths and all his little gizmos, and she destroys those. But I liked how what drove her over the edge was the way that Anarchy was talking down to her.
Yeah.
And it was just like, no, you don't know any better. We got to follow me because I'm the one. And that's kind of her issues with Batman is Batman's not listening to her. Because clearly there's a problem, and she's trying to fix that problem, and that's So had it gone the other way, and she just would have fallen with Anarchy, it would have felt like a tragedy. But here it feels like, yeah, get him, Steph. Like, you're your own woman. You do things your way.
And ultimately, we know she's going to eventually come back round. But in terms of getting to the emotion, though, here at the end, so they get out the tunnel and they get Anarchy. He's captured, and Batman's like, I need to talk to you, Steph. It's important. And she's like, no, I can't right now. And she leaves. She walks over, and he's like, and it's that way he quietly just says it after she's already away. It's like, Steph, it's about Tim. He's alive. It's, And
you get the sense that even though you can't see her, she heard it. She knows now.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did she hear it? I'm not convinced.
I like to think she did, but it's like the end of Inception.
I don't think she did.
It's better for the story.
Because for me, it's better for the story if she didn't. Because he says it because he wants to tell her, but she's not giving him the chance to do it. Because I still think that come next arc, when she does find out, when she sees him, or however she learns it, and it could be just that he walks in the room because maybe she's out of the story until he's back. But I could see that being a really big.
For me, it was like she heard, but she doesn't want to listen to Batman because she doesn't trust him. She doesn't want to know what he says, but she heard it anyway, and it's going to be sitting in her mind and waiting there.
I'm going to look at this page again because I think the text is even smaller to imply that he says it quietly.
It's a little smaller, yeah.
It's like a defeated thing where he knows she's already left, so he just says it quietly. It's kind of a defeated little last moment for himself.
I like to think that it's loud enough for Anarchy to hear, and he's like, "Who's Tim?"
Yeah, I think for me it's the fact that the rocks in the foreground, away from where Batman's facing, they're purple. So it's kind of that to me is saying no, Steph's still there in some respect. That purple is signifying that to me.
Yeah, that's a good pickup, Connor. I didn't realize that till just now.
Okay, fair point.
Why else make him purple?
I am in the camp she didn't hear, but it's not a big deal either way.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not. If it turns out she didn't, I'm not going to be like, oh, okay, whatever. I'm not going to complain about it. I'll just get on with the story and enjoy it where it goes.
I mean, I might rub it in a little bit because
because of course you would. Yeah.
I don't rub it in with Matt, but with Connor, I'll rub it in.
You take every opportunity.
So we have one more emotional moment with Cass and Clayface, where Clayface is, I'm still a monster, blah blah blah, and he's like, you don't know what I'm inside, and Cass says, same as me, and then he breaks down and hugs her. And again, if you just want to hit me in the feels, which is all this issue is, it's Steph almost hearing about Tim, Batman being rare for Batman. He's clearly emotionally sad. He's in a sad. Batman's always sad, but he usually channels it into an anger.
He's not brooding.
Whereas this is more of an actual upset Batman. And then you've got Cass and Clayface, touching moments, and then we get the first victim back in the game. He's in Arkham, and he seems to be behind a lot of this stuff. And Anarchy tells him about Steph, that she's not on board, and it's almost time for whatever his end game is, or whatever's happening soon. So
clone the phone.
And first victim, I've always liked his look, so I'm glad he's back in.
I think there's a few things in this issue. Like, I never thought I'd care that much about Cass and Clayface. Like, you say that, but god damn, that is the soul of the book, like you say. And then on top of that, you've got him playing into the entire run of like the first victim stuff. It's like, okay, everything feels important again, and there's a real heart to it. And I'm kind of, even though I've been enjoying it and it's been like one of the best books, I'm still surprised by when this all comes back up.
I think because it is building upon itself, and it's got to a point now where it's like a lot of, because even though we cared about a lot of these characters, it's making me care about a character that I really didn't before in Clayface. His relationship with Cass is really sweet. It's building on all the stuff it's done before, and it's adding all this emotion in. It's getting to the point where it's getting better and better because of the fact that it's building on itself. And when we see the full thing as a whole, however long it ends up being this run, it's going to be like, okay, this giant story that did actually sort of take all the things that he'd been doing. Because we also know that the colony's coming back with Batwoman and all this future thing we've been hinted at and stuff.
Yeah, with Tim.
It's the idea of, like certain sitcoms when there's in-jokes that at first they're not really that funny, but by the time you're 5 seasons in, they're hilarious because they keep making them funnier every time it's brought up. It's the same here that, okay, now the first victim's brought up again, it's like, okay, this is more important. It suddenly it gets depth every time you bring it up.